Welcome to a very windy Copenhagen, so apologies for this. But this is the all-new Mercedes CLA EQ. So effectively, this is Mercedes' first rival for the likes of the Tesla Model 3, BYD Seal, and so on. But is it any good? So this is now the third generation of the CLA, but surprisingly, the first one that Mercedes has made as an EV. You can also get hybrid, that is coming later with a 4-cylinder petrol engine, but for now, what we get in the UK is this. It's the snappily titled CLA 250 Plus with EQ technology, which effectively means you get an 85 kilowatt hour battery, which is pretty hefty for a car of this size, and a 484 mile range. I mean, it's quite impressive really. Styling wise though, this is what the CLA is going to look like, whether you go for the electric or the petrol that comes a bit later. Mercedes have moved away from having two different looking cars for EV and petrol. So this is what you get. Hope you like it. At the front, we've got this massive plastic grille with lots of sort of Mercedes logos embedded in it. There's something like, I can't remember, 142 individually lit little 3-pointed stars. Of course, you've got this massive light bar thing going on as well, the signature of Mercedes' current look. And if you come around to the side, you can sort of see it's still a CLA. It's still got that sloping roofline and sort of coupe saloon proportions. But I do think they've lost a little bit in turning this into an EV because they've had to account for battery under the floor, which pushes up everyone inside, and therefore the roof has to be a bit higher. So I don't know, it's a little bit more blobby than it used to be. It's kind of halfway between the CLA and the A-Class Saloon, which was always a little bit more frumpy. But I don't think they've done too bad a job, to be honest. I think it's much more conventional looking than something like the EQE, and all the better for it. And of course, they've still had to leave a normal bonnet to put a 4-cylinder engine under, so that kind of helps. And then at the back, similar sort of story, very conventionally Mercedes rear end with this enormous LED light bar going across the back, which I can't say I'm a huge fan of, to be honest. I think they look a little bit late 90s. But there we are. You've also got nice little details of the 3-pointed star in the light clusters to go with all the other hundreds of 3-pointed stars hidden across the car. I do think though, it's put on a few pounds at the rear, hasn't it? This is not as felt as it once was. But that does mean, at least, you do get a big boot. This is kind of comparable with quite a few rivals in terms of boot space. And there is, of course, that shooting brake option coming soon as well, which is even bigger. Speaking of space, let's talk rear legroom. And there is some, surprisingly. So the CLA was never really a particularly capacious car in the back, and that's kind of by design. It was never really supposed to be. This is fine. It's much of the same, really. I would say this seat is in my usual driving position. I'm 5'11" with quite long legs, and to be honest, there's a little bit of room, but it's fine. What I would say is the floor is very high, so you can see this is not a comfortable way to spend a long journey. Other than that, though, it's sort of okay. I think if you were a little bit taller than me, which many people are, you would be banging your head on this panoramic roof, which incidentally is the only option. There is no normal roof on this car. Mercedes have put this panoramic roof with no blind, by the way, in every single CLA. So, hope you like the sun. Here in the front, similar sort of deal. I mean, classic CLA, pretty cocooned in here, I would say, but actually loads of space. I've got loads of space for my left leg. There's even a bit of storage space down here, which is quite nice, and these 2 cup holders here, along with the classic Mercedes magic flippy bin in the middle, although there's not much room in that actually. The big news in here is the infotainment. So Mercedes are making a big deal out of this, and you can sort of tell based on the shape of the dashboard. It is just a flat slab, so they can put as much screen in there as physically possible. As standard, you get this pretty big one in the centre here, and of course your driver information display here. But you can also have an identically sized other one just for the passenger to play with. And they can do things like watch films if they really want to, pair Bluetooth headsets with it. But let's be honest, most cars in the UK are not going to go for that. They're going to get instead this bit of gloss plastic with lots of Mercedes logos all over it. The other thing Mercedes are making a big deal out of is the AI built into this car. So they've wedged in Google and Microsoft AI in some form, and Google Maps integration as well, although it's got a sort of Mercedes navigation skin over the top of it. And the idea is that you can speak to the car like it's a normal human being, and it will understand you and have a little conversation with you as well, which is nice for those lonely nights on the road. So, hey Mercedes.
Yes.
Can you find me an Italian restaurant for dinner?
There is an Italian restaurant called Ristorante Italiano. It's a cozy, romantic spot that has been open since 1952, serving homemade Italian and Mediterranean classics. Does this sound good to you?
Would you recommend it?
I can't tell you if you'd enjoy it or not, but the reviews are very positive. People say the food is great and the service is attentive. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Would you like me to take you there?
No, thank you. I mean, that's pretty good, isn't it? As for the rest of this, it all works pretty well as well. It's very responsive. It's also very well laid out. I mean, it can be a little bit distracted with the amount of information that's on here, but once you get used to it, it's okay. And as someone that is not a big fan of touchscreens controlling everything, I will say at least Mercedes has permanently put the climate control temperature along the bottom, along with the sort of, almost like a Mac, there's a dock with some icons that you can play around with. As for materials, I mean, this car has this very nice brownish leatherette, I'm going to call it, which probably we won't get in the UK. But it's fine. You have to remember this is A-class level, well, it's CLA, isn't it? CLA level car. It's not a massively expensive Mercedes, so you don't get quite the same level of fit and finish as you would in a higher end model, and there's some less than ideal materials. This gold finish here is particularly horrible. You can get a much nicer aluminium or wood with some pinstripes going through it, which I'd be tempted to do because I can sort of see this scratching already. It is at least quite nicely designed in here. I mean, you've got the classic Mercedes ambient lights all over the place, and I don't hate how it looks. It's much better in person, this enormous slab of a dashboard, than in the photos as well. It doesn't seem to dominate your vision quite as much as you might think it would. I think we'd better drive it. Right, well, let's start with the nitty gritty. So, as I say, 85 kilowatt hour battery. That is a big battery for a car of this size. A smaller one is coming later on, along with the regular petrol hybrid version. But this is what you're going to get first. And actually, I don't think for the price of this car, which I'm going to put here because I can't remember the exact figure, I don't think that's bad value when you look at the kind of battery size and range that rivals of this car have. It's also quite clever because it's an 800 volt system, which means you can charge at slightly mad 320 kilowatt speeds, provided you can find the right charger and it's not too cold and the wind's blowing the right way and the right government's in power and so on and so forth. And that in theory means that after a 10-minute charge you can put in 200 miles of range. Quite impressive, really. In terms of power outputs, this particular model, the first one we're going to get, the 250 Plus, has a rear motor with 272 horsepower, which is probably something like 268 bhp or something. And it's pretty sprightly. I would say it's not the quickest EV in the world. You know, this is not a Tesla Model 3 performance kind of power. It's just pleasant, and the way that Mercedes have dialed it in, if you like, is that it just feels luxurious and wafty and effortless. It's not breaking your neck with acceleration. Well, it's not bad actually. And notice I said rear electric motor as well. So this is rear wheel drive for the first time. All the previous CLAs, like the A-Class, have been front wheel drive. So in theory, this should make it a little bit more entertaining to drive. Has it made much of a difference? Well, I haven't really had a proper B-road test of this car. Unfortunately, roads in Copenhagen are incredibly straight and generally very smooth. So I can tell you it feels very pleasant, but the indications are that it's not quite BMW-ish in terms of entertainment, I would say. The steering is pretty light, even if I put it into sport mode using this button down here. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. The positives, though, is this just feels like a really, really well-engineered car. So the brakes, for example, most EVs, you push the brake pedal, there's kind of nothing while the regen happens. It just feels a bit peculiar. And then suddenly the discs kick in and there's this horrible bite. This, I honestly can't feel where regen ends and steel brakes begin. It is absolutely seamless. It feels really positive. It's great. It's brilliant, really. It's a similar story when it comes to acceleration. You know, Mercedes haven't given this a really excitable accelerator pedal, as it were. It's just really smooth, really progressive, very Mercedes. It's very easy to drive this car in traffic, for example, without giving everyone a headache because they've been banging their heads against the headrests. Speaking of driving and regen in this car is accessible by not paddles, but this drive stick, or whatever it's called, effectively the Mercedes column shifter. They've now made it go backwards and forwards as well as up and down. And that's how you flick between the 4 different regen modes. So you've got absolutely no regen at all, coasting everywhere. You've got normal regen, which just feels like normal kind of engine drag. Another one that's a little bit more aggressive, which sticks the brake lights on as well. And then one of those horrible intelligent ones that thinks it knows better than you do, which it doesn't. Normal seems pretty good, to be honest. I've been driving around in it for a little while, and that's what I would leave it in. It makes the car feel like a normal petrol car. You're nowhere near that. The other thing I need to talk about is the ride, because in an EV, things tend to get a little bit crashy because of all that weight hidden under the floor. But this, I'm amazed. Really amazed. And again, we're not in Britain, we're not going over horrible potholes, but this seems to ride incredibly well. I mean, this is a bit lumpy here. It does insulate you really well from horrible bits of road. One thing Mercedes is really harping on about with this car is efficiency. They have made a lot of changes to how their electric powertrain works to maximise the range without having to put an enormous battery under the floor. I mean, all right, an 85 kilowatt hour battery is quite big for a car of this type, but still. So the first thing they've done is given that electric motor a gearbox, as in a 2-speed gearbox, not just one gear, which is what most EVs have. And they say what that's done is maximise the efficiency of that electric motor, stay with me, over the way that you would normally drive it. So you could either, say Mercedes, tune it to be really efficient around town or tune it to be really efficient on the motorway. You can't have both unless you have a 2-speed gearbox. So that's what they've done. Another thing, they've played around with the heat pump for the heater and made that even more efficient. So that now steals heat from residual heat that's going to waste from the battery and the drivetrain, all that sort of stuff, rather than just sucking it out of the atmosphere. And that means that has saved you some battery as well. Now, whether all that's paid off won't be entirely clear until we drive this car in the UK, because of course I'm driving around in summer in a city with quite low speed limits at the minute, to be honest. But the kind of figures we've been getting from driving it here and on Denmark's equivalent of a motorway are pretty impressive, you know, kind of above 4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is Tesla level of energy efficiency, which most manufacturers aren't very good at hitting at the minute. So if Mercedes have managed that, fair play to them. So, should you buy one of these rather than a Tesla Model 3 or a BYD Seal, etc., etc.? Yes, I think you probably should. This is a really well-engineered car, and there's not really much to criticise apart from a slight lack of fun factor in the way that it goes down the road. But the way that it deals with bumps like this, miles better than, I would say, pretty much all of its competition. And if those efficiency figures are to be believed, and the range of 484 miles is doable, well, it's kind of hard to argue with that, isn't it? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like underneath and subscribe for more content like this from Car Test Lab.